Hello, Sam. Nice to see you, my friend. I think you're actually on mute, so I'm not sure what you've asked me there. But looking forward to tonight's game. Really excited to see the Imps back in action.
Excellent stuff. And I did that intro almost word perfect as well. Sod's law, isn't it? Let me go back to the start of the show then and just ask you how big that is that fans are returning at some stage to the LNER Stadium.
Oh, it's brilliant news, isn't it? And look, from a financial point of view, the season tickets are already in the bag. That's not what it's about for the club or for the supporters. It's just that first step back to normality. I think 263 days it's been since we played Burton Albion. Nobody could imagine that we would be so long without football. And news that potentially, even in small numbers, we can go back to Sinsel Bank is the best early Christmas present anyone could have.
Yeah, absolutely. The comments are flying in thick and fast already. Sam, you're muted. I can't hear anything. You're on mute. Sam, you're on mute. Yeah, welcome to 2020. Sorry about that, guys, but we are here. We're back. Gary, if we stay on the topic of fans at some stage returning to football, it is at the point now almost where not seeing fans at stadiums has become the norm. So should we see a full LNER stadium at some stage, the siren going, the fans roaring, the 617 at it, it will be quite special, won't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the world has changed, and it is incredibly odd to think that stadiums could be full. And sometimes I'm going back through pictures for an article and I see the packed fans and people all stood together. And it's not just football, it's society in general. Nobody gets close anymore. You're never in packed areas. I miss it terribly. And, there's so many supporters who rely on the football club for their, positive mental well-being as well. And we have great fans. It's easy to say that, but we have some of the best fans in the division. And to get them in the stadium watching this team playing the football that we have been playing thus far this season is a mouthwatering prospect.
From a financial point of view, Gary, no secret this could be huge as well for a lot of EFL clubs. Just how big will it be? For this club, we've heard from the likes of Liam Scully, Clive Nates talking in the fans forum and variously on social media as well. But just how big will this be overall for the EFL?
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all for Lincoln in general, although the season tickets are already technically sold, it's money that potentially won't be refunded. So instantly it starts a slow and steady trickle. And, we still need that bailout to be sorted. But then there's match day revenue, there's the programmes, there's drinks around the ground in whatever form that's going to be. So revenue starts to come in. And I think certainly, there's 20 or 30 clubs probably in a worse situation than we are. And they will be welcoming this with open arms, as everybody will. But, just because we think that we're kind of 20 down the line from going into serious problems doesn't mean that we're not in serious problems, but doesn't mean that we're not under threat. So signs that things are going to be beginning to get back to normal are really exciting.
Absolutely. Right, Gary, let's have a look back at that draw then. Accrington Stanley at the weekend was a point of fair one for the Imps.
Yeah, I think so. Look, I think in the last 15 minutes, you would expect that we might have gone on and won the game. I actually thought probably for 60 minutes, Accrington were the best side. A couple of good chances there. I thought we defended stoically. To be honest, they were a much better side than I thought they would be. And it was a mad opening couple of minutes, wasn't it? The best two chances of the first half within the first sort of 60, 65 seconds. So, it was an engrossing game without being particularly thrilling until late on.
Yeah, I think you summarised it pretty well there, Gary. I mean, the fact that it sort of had shades of Fleetwood, didn't it, to an extent? I mean, this was almost a farcical goal, really, wasn't it? But the fact that when a home side are coming on strong like that, the away side, in this case, Lincoln City, managed to sort of hold out and get a point. So, it says a lot about the Imps, doesn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't, certainly for the first 60-odd minutes. I think Accrington play nice football. They're not a team that are packed full of big names, but they're very organised. They're very efficient in the counter-attack. And I didn't think we looked like scoring until that moment. Dubious, I think some people are saying perhaps wasn't a red card. It looked bad in real time. After that, I think we would have hoped to have gone on and won the game. And I think then it reflected well on Accrington that they were able to sit back and soak up the pressure. But look, let's not, the Fleetwood game, I thought we played very well and deserved to win. This game, I actually thought for long periods we were a little sloppy in possession. We looked a little disjointed. So in the end, although we could have won it with this effort from Anthony Scully, I think 0-0 was probably the right result.
Yeah, just one goal scored in 4 away games, Gary. Why do you think that is?
Dare I say we haven't been getting penalties. I think we work incredibly hard as a unit. And sometimes I think what a side needs is actually a selfish striker who isn't working for the team, who's working for himself. And Tom Hopper he's working so hard, but often when we're getting good balls into the box, certainly when we're away from home, there's no people on the end of them. Now, maybe that's Tom, maybe that's the wide players coming in. I don't think it's a lack of creativity. I think we're getting in decent positions, in decent attacking areas. I just think that probably it's the last area on the pitch that Michael's philosophy is yet to click.
But on the flip side, I guess having only conceded 1 goal away from home in the last 4 league games is massive as well. I imagine that's one of the best away records in the country.
Well, there you go. And that's reflective of the fact that the likes of Tom Hopper work so hard, because at the same time, you've always got 11 players running for the ball. So he might find himself deep defending. And there's been several occasions on away games recently where I've blinked at the screen because as we're coming away from defence, it's Tom Hopper bringing the ball out. And you think, wow, the striker's got back. He's done well. So probably the low-scoring sort of games away from home are reflective of the fact that we just work really hard for each other. We don't have any selfish players. And it's just a bit now to find a way to make that hard work manifest itself into better attacking phases.
Absolutely. One of the many things that I said in that Matchday Live intro that none of you were able to hear because I muted myself, Dole, is do get your score predictions in. Want to know where you're watching Matchday Live from as well this evening. James is ahead of the game. He says, good evening, Sam and Gary. Got a feeling that we'll have goals tonight. 1-4 in favour of City. Carl Heil says, any kind of political sporting press conference in 2020, you're on mute. You're still on mute. Yep, absolutely. So let me know your score predictions this evening, because got a feeling after a tricky few games for the Imps over the last few weeks or so, I think tonight could be quite a high scoring affair. Don't want to jinx it, but yeah, let's hear from Michael Appleton now, who spoke yesterday at the Soper of Lincoln EPC ahead of obviously tonight's game. This is what he had to say.
Yeah, it will be difficult because obviously they'll still have players really trying to impress the manager. The manager's not been in there too long, and you know, the manager will still be, I would imagine, trying to figure out and work out what his best 11 are, what his best formation is. John's obviously a very, very experienced manager, you know, been and managed throughout the leagues. Yeah, so, you know, it's one of them where it's not a particularly easy place to go. I know from my days at Oxford where there was a lot of rivalry between the two clubs. Fortunately, I ended up being on the right side of all the results, which was a nice omen, hopefully. So yeah, no, I'm looking forward to the game. It's going to be a difficult game. They're on the back of a win, and you know, there's no easy game. I think when you look at the table as a whole, you know, I think that just tells you sort of how competitive the league is. Yes, you've got certain teams at the top of the table that you'd expect to be there, but everyone else just seems to be picking points up off everybody, and it seems really competitive.
They've got a lot of experienced men in their side as well, a lot of Football League appearances under their belt. Do you think that will help Lincoln in a sense, because it's, you know, the Saturday, Tuesday games and we're on a run of busy fixtures?
I mean, that could do, but obviously on the back of a win, it's amazing what a win can do for the energy levels and you know, so-called stiff bodies and that age that can be work in your favour sometimes. But again, you're right. I think we have got a lot of energy in our team. I think we've got a bit of youthfulness that should see us through times and periods that we're going to go into over the next 6 weeks or so.
Jack Payne, you'll be coming up against him, someone I think who we saw in parts what talent he has. Was it frustration for you as a manager and as a coach that you didn't manage to get that talent to come out week in, week out?
Yeah, to a degree, but you know, ultimately, you know, you can only give so much to players, to teams, and you know, it's up to them to sort of go and do it. And Jack will feel that he never got the opportunity or enough opportunities to do it, which is fine. And you know, he obviously had the opportunity to prove me and, you know, various other people wrong. That's football. Like I said, don't get too precious about things like that. If it works out, great. If it doesn't, we all move on and go and do different things. He's obviously a talented player, but you know, ultimately, it's one of them where you need to make sure that whatever talent you've got, you can make sure that you can bring it every single week. And if that's Saturday, Tuesday, or Saturday to Saturday, that's your job to do it. So Like I say, when Jack went to Swindon, there was no issues. It was one of them. It was an opportunity for him to get more game time. I had no problem with that. I could see his reasoning and see our reasoning behind it, and it was very amicable.
Yeah, Michael Appleton speaking to BBC Radio Lincolnshire's Rob Makepeace there. And Gary, as usual, no beating around the bush from the manager. Let's go on to that topic regarding Jack Payne then. It just didn't quite work out, did it? But as Michael said, it was an amicable departure from Jack.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I've made no secret of the fact I was really excited when Jack signed. I'd followed his career kind of from Blackburn. I think he was out on loan in Huddersfield. Thought he was a player that could make a serious difference. I think on his day he can. Certainly in the warmer summer months for us, I thought he played really well. I thought he showed some real endeavour. Didn't just quite get the assists and the goals. And then as we entered the colder months and things got a little bit heavier, pitches got a little bit tougher, opposition arguably got a little bit more aggressive, he began to fade away. And I think he was, because he's diminutive, I think he was relatively easy for some of the kind of chunkier midfielders and defenders to mark out of a game. He came on against Southend, perceived to have a decent run out, and that was his last performance. It was a shame it didn't work out here. It'd be interesting to see how he does for Swindon under the next few months, given the change in manager and the change in conditions.
I mean, sometimes that's just how it goes, isn't it? Particularly with creative level players around sort of League One, League Two. You know, you look at the likes of Sam Clucas, Ellis Chapman as well. It just sometimes they just don't work out in a particular sort of playing style, do they? But then, you go and see them actually go off and flourish in the Championship at a later date.
Yeah, that's quite correct. But I think arguably Michael's style probably favoured Jack more than Danny's style. And I know Danny's kind of passing style was in its infancy. But, we play a zippy game where you expect players to ping the ball about, to make runs, to pop up in positions. And that's the type of player that I thought Jack Payne was, particularly given his size. I had this vision of him kind of being a little terrier and running the channels and all that sort of thing. And it just didn't quite come off for him. Look, he's had a decent start to his Swindon career. I think it's 4 assists and 1 goal. He played again at the weekend after being dropped the week before. It'd be interesting just to see how he copes with it and whether John Sheridan's style will suit his style of football.
Absolutely. It'd be interesting to see, won't it, Gary? Right, it's 6 o'clock, absolutely flying through the show, which means one thing only. It's time for this evening's team news. Right then, Michael Appleton makes 4 changes to that side that played Accrington Stanley at the weekend. Alex Palmer in goal. It is then Robbie Gotts, Lewis Montsma, Adam Jackson, Teo Eden. Liam Bridcut is the captain, George Grant, James Jones, Brennan Johnson, Anthony Scully and Tom Hopper up front. It is then Long, Melbourne, Archibald, McGrandles, Ioma, Anderson and Rowan on the bench. Let me just read that through for you once more. Palmer, Gotts, Montsma, Jackson, Eden, Bridcut, Grant, Jones, Johnson, Scully and Tom Hopper. 4 changes for Michael Appleton's side this evening. Gary, I'll go straight to the fullbacks then. Teo Eden, Robbie Gotts in, Ioma, Melbourne out. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think on Saturday I commented that it was nice to see what I thought was our regular back 4. I do wonder if maybe there's a knock with Ioma, possibly. Then again, with Swindon playing 4-3-3 in their last game, we're going to have to stop crosses going into Brett Pittman. So it might be a slightly more defensive defence. And I know that might sound a little silly, but both Max Melbourne and Teo Eden like to get on. They like to, Max Melbourne, and TJ Ioma like to push on and bomb on. And maybe with Teo Eden and Robbie Gotts, we're hoping that they're going to stay a little bit tighter and a little bit more compact to stop any service into Brett Pittman. It's an interesting one.
Do you notice a different change of style in the way that Michael Appleton sets his sides up when he changes the fullbacks? Because they are just so interchangeable, all 4, maybe even 6 of them that he likes to sort of flip around with.
Yeah, certainly. I think with Harry Anderson, Harry tends to play when an opposition's playing 3-5-2. He likes to then play at fullback because he doesn't have the additional player coming at him to think about. I think with TJ Ioma and Max Melbourne, they're very attacking fullbacks. Certainly like to you could imagine them playing wing, for instance, or certainly further up the field. Robbie Watson, Teo Edden, both central midfielders by trade, and what that suggests to me is maybe a little bit more stoic, a little bit reserved, maybe. May not find them overlapping with 25 minutes gone, leaving any spaces at the back. When you're playing against a 4-3-3, there's two wide midfielders and the two wide attackers to think about as well. So I actually think it'll be a little bit more cagey with those two players playing.
I thought Conor McGrandles had a really good game the other day, particularly in the first half. He obviously drops to the bench today. Is that a case of just giving him a rest?
It could be. When I look at the central midfield for tonight, I wonder if it's actually a case of trying to create a little more, because McGrandles certainly scrapped well, he fought well, and he obviously had the chance early in the first half. But I think James Jones and George Grant sat next to each other, behind that forward three. There's a lot more creativity. And it's almost the question that posed, how do you get the best out of George Grant? Because for me, if he's on the left wing, he's a little bit wasted. When we want from my wingers, I want pace, I want running at people, I want getting to the byline. And George Grant is a much more thoughtful player with the way that he sprays the ball about. I actually like to see him in that central role alongside James Jones. So I wonder if there is more of a thought of controlling that midfield battle. Remember, it's like for like, 4-3-3. I'm just getting a little bit of creativity coming centrally rather than out wide.
If we have a look at the team graphic again, the starting 11 for Lincoln City's side this evening, and Gary, I just want to ask you about the front three then, because we sort of loosely alluded to Anthony Scully, didn't we, when he hit the post against Accrington, looking back at that game earlier on in the show, and then obviously Brennan Johnson back as well. So it's a very different looking front three for Michael Appleton's side this evening. But certainly for Anthony Scully, it's a massive night, isn't it?
Yeah, it's certainly a big night for him. I mean, he started the season in what I would consider the number 12 role. He was almost, the first reserve. I mean, I think he scored the opening goal of the season, potentially against Oxford. And I might be wrong there. He certainly scored one early goal with a header. Really talented player. Again, how do you get the best out of him? Where do you play him? It looks like he's going to potentially be playing on the flank tonight. He reminds me very much of number 10. He's quite stocky. What he does give you is direct running, selfish direct running, and that's not derogatory. That's positive, because he's always got one thing on his mind: get forward, get a goal, get shots away. And again, when we've only scored, as I think you said, 1 goal in 4 games away from home, something like that, I think Michael's looking just to change things up front and maybe just get a little bit more creative.
Yeah, and on the other side then, Brennan Johnson back into this side. It is a pretty obvious question for you, Gary, but it's a massive boost to have Brennan Johnson in any League One side, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Look, he should have had a penalty on Saturday. It was a foul in the area. That's what he does. He draws fouls. He draws players into tackles. He draws them away from the centre of the pitch so that there's more space in the middle. He delivers balls. He gets to the byline. But the boys are cut above League One. I don't think there's any doubt about that. For me, he could play in the Championship right now. Incredible footballer. Got a big future ahead of him. And it's a massive boost to see him back in the starting 11.
Absolutely. Right, let's go to a very quick break then. We'll be back in around 20 seconds or so. See you then. Tell you what, Gary, a chippy tea wouldn't go amiss tonight, would it?
I've got lamb shank, Sam, in the oven at 6:30.
Living the high life. It's a Tuesday night, Gary.
I was meant to have it last night. I only had pizza.
Love it. Right, you're getting your questions and comments flying in here. Jake Tong says, what a performance from that man in between the sticks again. Been a saving grace as Alex Palmer. Yeah, we've certainly chatted a lot about Alex Palmer and just some of the brilliant performances that he's put in so far this season for Lincoln City. Graham Burrell watching from home tonight. Hi, Graham. Great to have you with us this evening. Jake Tong says 2-1 to City. Don't think it'll be as easy as we think. Swindon still have that new manager bounce, so I don't think they'll make it easy for us. Yeah, we'll be talking to a reporter from the Swindon Gazette very shortly. Be asking him about that new manager bounce as well. Vicky Shipley says watching from Leicestershire. I predict an Imps win. Hi, Vicky. Great to see you. Dean Wagstaff says watching with the Spug up in North Yorkshire with fingers crossed for an Imps win. Hearing you loud and clear now, Sam. Yeah, good to know, Dean. Right. Let's go to Liam Bridcut then, who's been chatting at the Soap of Lincoln EPC earlier this week ahead of tonight's game.
It's always good to be out on the pitch. As a footballer, that's all you want to do is regular games and regular training. So yeah, very happy to be back.
Any ill effects from the injury?
No, at the minute I feel really good. The medical team have been really good with me. The manager's been good in terms of giving me time to recover. So yeah, I feel really good.
The manager, when you was missing, along with a couple of others, called you part of the golden triangle. What's it like to have that praise from the manager?
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's a massive confidence booster. I think from the time I've come into Lincoln, the manager's put a bit of added pressure on myself in terms of being in control of the group. And yeah, it's good to know that the manager puts me in such high regards, really.
And you are the captain. How do you treat that role? Are you a captain who leads by example, or are you a captain who likes to talk to the players and communicate?
Both. I think if I'm 100% and I'm given 100%, I think the boys will follow. And I'm always there for the lads in terms of talking, in terms of I've got that bit of extra experience. So if the lads need that bit of knowledge or help with anything, I'm always there and always open to help the lads.
There's a lot of talk in the Premier League at the moment about the amount of fixtures that are happening for footballers. Personally, do you feel like it's too much at the moment, the amount of games you're having to fit into this season, or are you just enjoying being involved in football once again?
No, yeah, definitely enjoying it. I think we've been for a tough period at not getting the games and things like that, so everyone's been looking forward to it. I think there is a lot of games in a short period, but it's going to be difficult because we know we've got such a small squad at the minute. But every game everyone looks forward to and enjoyable. But I think the lads would much rather have as many games as we can, really.
Yeah, the captain, Liam Bridcut, speaking to BBC Radio Lincolnshire there. And Gary, I mean, it sounds pretty obvious, doesn't it? But he has got a good relationship with Michael Appleton. You can hear it in the way that he speaks. And it's interesting that he mentioned the pressure that the manager puts on him there. That's quite clever management, isn't it? Considering just how the sort of high level, really, that Liam Bridcut has played in terms of Premier League football. Yet he is feeling, in a good way, the pressure playing League One and captaining Lincoln City.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the relationship he has with Michael was evident by the fact that we were able to sign him anyway, because he's another player that I think could comfortably fit into a side like Rotherham or Wickham in the Championship and do a job. So signing him was a huge coup. I think it's important to keep him happy and motivated as well. I think that's one of the reasons Michael puts the pressure on him, because then as a club captain, you pass that down, and it's like any management chain. Anybody who's listening in and works in an office environment knows if you're managing people, you put more pressure on them if you're having it put on you. He's also a very good footballer, and we still haven't seen the best of him as yet. He's had a little bit of bad luck with injuries, but I thought he played incredibly well against Accrington in the first sort of 60, 70 minutes. I thought part of the reason that they struggled to get through was how hard he worked. I noticed he was marked quite tightly as well, and I think the opposition are picking up on that, so he might have to adapt his game a little bit going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's so easy, isn't it, to forget that he's only 31, such an experienced player. How important is it to have someone like that can slot into particularly a midfield three?
Yeah, it's hugely important. And when we talk about experience, that comes in all shapes and sizes, doesn't it? It comes with games. You might not have played the games, but it comes with who you've played for, who you've played with. And what sticks with me, the first time I ever spoke to Liam Bridcut, I asked him who the most influential captain was he had played for, and he rolled out John Terry straight away. And I think that speaks volumes for where he's been, and the fact that he's only 31 and he's played with arguably world-class players when he's been at the likes of Chelsea, when he's been with the likes of Sunderland and Leeds, he's played with good domestic players as well. So to have him there in the heart of the midfield, he's got eyes on every area of the pitch. He's there just behind it, just in front of the defence to keep them sort of motivated. I think it's the perfect position for a captain. I don't buy that your captain can be a goalkeeper. I'm not a big fan of him being the centre forward. For me, your captain's got to be right there in the heart of the team.
Absolutely. Let's get the team news graphic back up, and I'll just take you through that, particularly if you're only just joining the show. Michael Appleton has made 4 changes to the side that drew 0-0 with Accrington at the weekend. It is Alex Palmer in goal, then Robbie Gotts, Lewis Monsma, Adam Jackson, Teo Eden, Lynn Bridcutt, the captain, George Grant, James Jones, Brennan Johnson is back, Anthony Scully gets a start this evening, and Tom Hopper starts once again. It is then Long, Melbourne, Archibald, McGrandles, Ioma, Anderson and Sean Rowan on the bench. That is Michael Appleton's starting 11 this evening. I've asked for your comments so far. You're getting them thick and fast so far. Kate Jackson says, watching on my commute from London to Reading, hope to continue my gloating streak over my Swindon supporting friend. Yeah, fingers crossed, Kate. Great to have you with us this evening. And Stuart Wells says, Sam, great to see your Movember efforts. I think he's being sarky there, unless it's the lighting. Hoping the team take their chances tonight. We need to be brave on the ball, not be afraid to shoot on sight instead of trying to pass the ball into the net. I mean, Gary, is it a fair comment there from Stu, not regarding my awful attempt at Movember, but in terms of the way that the side can play and maybe sometimes overplaying it a little bit, because we are seeing some brilliant football, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. I think it would be hard to say we don't score long-range goals when you think about George Grant's efforts. James Jones has had efforts. Lewis Monsma having the crack against Crewe. So I think that we're willing to shoot. You don't want a team that's going to shoot on sight all the time because they just get wasteful and selfish. So you need a two-pronged attack. Yes, you do need to be able to take those chances when they come. You do need to be able to have a pop and a speculate at times. But I think on the whole, I would rather see a patient build-up. Probably the area that we don't shoot enough from is in the kind of 18-yard area, in that area between the 6-yard box and the edge of the area. We tend to, if we get in those areas looking to deliver into the centre or play out, sometimes you think just have a dig because you can take a ricochet, a catapult. We haven't seen an awful lot of that. We haven't seen an awful lot of ricochet goals this season. So maybe that's an area we could improve upon. But I think just generally, if we keep doing what we're doing, I actually think we've got the right approach and the right method. It just needs to click. We saw it against Forest Green. We just need to see it in the league now.
Really appreciating the sponsorship from various local independent and local businesses around the city of Lincoln. They're helping keep this show going, no doubt about that. Let's go to a quick break and celebrate some of those right now. And welcome back. Nice and short, wasn't it? Gary, let's have a look back at the 2-2 game then. All the way back in January 2019, the last time that the Imps went to the county ground, of course, with what's happened with COVID-19 over the last year or so. And yes, it does seem like a long time ago, but it was quite the spectacle, certainly from a neutral point of view, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was phenomenal. It was actually the day I picked up my dog, so I remember it well because I was listening to it on the radio and didn't go. We were sensational early doors, as I think we were in quite a few games that season. We rode our luck. I think Swindon were a strong side. Obviously, we went down to 10 men, which was a little bit disappointing. Then we went down to 9 men, and we saw the other side of that Lincoln City. I mean, we just fought so hard. And I think it was probably the single best performance I'd seen from Michael Boswick in a Lincoln shirt.
Yeah, I mean, really, a lot of Danny Cowley's sides, or certainly from a Lincoln City point of view, they just had this sense of fight back that when their backs were against the wall, they would produce something like that, despite the fact that they were down to 10 men.
Yeah, absolutely. But one thing I will say is this goal, we didn't see an awful lot of that, but what a goal that was from Shane McCartney. He's playing for Ballymena now in Northern Ireland. We saw that resilience from Danny's side. And I feel more comfortable talking about Danny Cowley's side now because I think sufficient time has passed for it to not be kind of the very recent future. It was a trademark, wasn't it, through the National League as well, refuse to lose. And when you're 9 men against 11, and that was a decent Swindon side as well, they expected to go on and win that game. They really should have done. I mean, that was actually a silly sending off, and it wasn't Jason Shackle's first. But some of the defending in those late areas was just typical of the team at the time.
Yeah, it certainly was. It was quite the game. I mean, of course, we want to see a Lincoln City win this evening, but I said again, from a neutral point of view, you'd love to see a game as exciting as this in terms of goals and the bodies on the line here. What a block that is. I mean, that's one of the best blocks you'll see all season, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that was Michael Boswick. He typified what that team was about, and we've moved on from there now in terms of style, in terms of approach. But we have the same resilience, I believe, in this team to a degree. And I think when you look at games like Fleetwood, for instance, when you look at Blackpool, when we went and won 3-2 there, we have that character in abundance. Successful teams have that. Successful teams draw games they should lose, like the last time we went to Swindon. Win games they should lose, like we did earlier against Blackpool. This game tonight, lots of fans seem to think we should win it. I think that's I think that's the wrong way to look at it. Swindon, the home side, they're in the ascendancy. I think if we got a draw tonight, it would be a good result. But again, Danny, I don't think Michael's team is ever the team that goes out for a draw.
Absolutely. We're going to be speaking to EFL expert Gab Sutton very shortly. He's going to be joining us on the show, knows all about League One, no doubt about that. And we're hoping to speak with Ben Willis as well, a Swindon Town reporter. But fingers crossed, we'll get to Ben shortly. Let's go to some of your comments then. Jim Morton's got a question for Gary. He says, Anderson will always have an explosive impact from the bench in any position down the right-hand side. What game scenario does Gary think McGrandles will be best deployed as a sub? Yeah, really good question, Jim.
It's a great question. I'd seen that in the comments earlier. I was hoping I was going to get asked that as well, because I've been thinking about it. What I see in Conor McGrandles and what I've been told is very different. I'm told that McGrandles can pick a great pass between two defenders, that he's that kind of attack-minded midfielder. For me, he's a harasser and a harrier, and he chases and he covers more ground than anybody. So for me, if you're winning 1-0, and you've got 20 minutes to go and you just need to make sure that somebody is going to be in a player's face all over the field, that's a Conor McGrandles position, because he's such a hard worker. So would you arguably look at maybe pushing George Grant out wide onto the flank, bringing an Anthony Scully off, for instance, and then playing McGrandles and Jones with Bridcut in the midfield? And I think that would just give you a little less creativity maybe, but I think that it would give you some fresh legs in key positions and make life hard for the opposition midfielders.
Aaron Richards says, deserves start for Scully. MA wants us to be a good pressing team, and he's arguably our most effective player doing that job, and has chipped in with more than his fair share of goals despite limited minutes in comparison to the other players. Andy Helgeson says, great show, great analysis. It's definitely kept us going and keeping our interests in all things Imps. Yeah, thanks for your comment, Andy, and fingers crossed that fans will be back at the LNER Stadium sooner rather than later. As I said, we're hoping to speak to Swindon Town reporter Ben Willis very shortly. What I'll do is I'll run through the team for you once more, just for those that are joining. 4 changes that Michael Appleton has made to the starting 11. Alex Palmer, Robbie Gotts and Teo Eden are the fullbacks. They come in for TJ Ioma and Max Melbourne as well. Then it is Lewis Monsmer, Adam Jackson. There's Liam Bridcut in there, the captain. You heard him speaking slightly earlier. George Grant, James Jones. Then it is Brennan Johnson, the aforementioned Anthony Scully and Tom Hopper. Long, Melbourne, Archibald, McGrandles, Ioma, Anderson and Rowan on the bench as well. Gary, I know a question that you wanted, that we chatted about before the show, that you wanted to put to Ben Willis, that you might not get a chance to if time beats us. So I'll actually sort of throw it on his head and put it to you. It is Brett Pittman. He's a man that you think could be a slight danger for the Imps tonight from Swindon's point of view.
Yeah, I class Brett Pittman as Matt Reed Mark II. He's kind of that step up. He's played at the higher level, but there's lots of similarities with Matt Reed. Is that he's robust, he's strong, he's an aggravator. If he's playing against you, you hate him. If he's playing for you, you love him. Scored goals for fun at Portsmouth. I think there may have been some form of falling out with Kenny Jackett. He didn't get as much game time, certainly in the last season, as he should have done. But he's always been prolific. As soon as he was available this summer, I thought whoever gets him is going to be he's going to be guaranteed goals. He's had a slow start to his Swindon career. It might be reflected in the fact that they've had a few injuries. I think he struggled to get himself fully fit as well. But on his day, I believe, even at however old he is now, he's as good as virtually any striker that you'll see in League One. And he's a real danger man. I think Adam Jackson will have his hands full keeping Brett Pittman quiet this evening.
Gab Sutton has joined us. I've only just sent him the link as well, so he's been super quick in doing so. So much appreciated, not least for your speed, Gab. But let's bring Gab in, and I'll ask you about the game tonight, Gab. First of all, if you don't mind, we'll then go through some of the bigger fixtures or some of the other big fixtures in League One as well. But from the Imps versus Swindon point of view, how do you see it going?
Yeah, I think that John Sheridan's priority for Swindon really will be to reorganise the Robins. I watched them play Accrington Stanley, and to be honest, it was a bit of a horror show for them at the back. And I'm sure John Sheridan was keen to tighten things up. And in the next game, I think they beat Bristol Rovers, didn't they? So that was a really important result, I think, just to get Sheridan's regime off to, off the mark kind of thing. I think Gaz is probably right to bring up Brett Pittman. I think he's a very good poacher at this level. I think I was slightly surprised with the comparisons with Matt Reid because he's not quite that same type of player. I don't think he's as committed maybe as Matt Reid. I think he's a little bit more languid and someone that's going to look to poach goal scoring opportunities myself. But he can certainly do that with that goal, which proves to be the winner against the Gashead. So massive from that point of view. And I think Swindon will look to be compact here. They've got Matt Baudry back in defence, which I think has made a bit of a difference for them. He's a defender they've struggled to keep fit, but I think that's going to make a bit of a difference for Swindon in terms of regaining that solidity after leaking a fair few goals, you'd have to say, so far this season.
Sorry, Gary, I was just going to say, this man is such an EFL expert that I told him we're going to be talking about 3 fixtures specifically, not Lincoln City versus Swindon Town. I've put him right on the spot and he's answered it very eloquently indeed. So thank you very much and well done, Gab. Gary, sorry.
I was actually going to continue that theme, Gab, I'm afraid, as well. Obviously, Swindon have been quite hit by injuries. I think there's Tyler Smith injured, the lad from Norwich as well. There's Jack Payne on the bench. Do you feel that this transitional period under John Sheridan is going to be badly affected by that? I mean, the lad from Norwich was a huge signing for them, wasn't he, in the summer?
Yeah, I suppose in terms of Swindon, they've got some good wide players. I mean, Johnny Smith is someone who I've quite rated at League One. Certainly in the past, he had some good loan spells at Oldham and at FC Fylde before that, and he seems to be stepping up well at League One. They've got Jordan Stevens as well, who came off the bench against Bristol Rovers. He's another player that I like, and of course, you'll be familiar with Jack Payne as well. I think generally in League One, he's someone who's performed pretty well, and Matt Smith has had some pretty rave reviews. So it's just a question of whether they can regain that solidity. But yes, I think injuries have affected them so far this season.
Gab, let's get on to some of these League One fixtures then, because it's almost a full house this evening in terms of those. I will start with Swindon Town's rivals, Oxford United, who are travelling to Portsmouth. Big game, that one, isn't it? How do you see it going?
Well, I think it was a massive result, wasn't it, for Oxford United at Wigan? Carl Robinson actually compared that performance, the 2-1 win at Wigan, to the 6-0 win at Lincoln Sales last season. Forgive me for mentioning that. I think that it was really important for Oxford to sign Jordan Obita. He's a left-footed player. They don't really have many left-footed players in that Oxford squad at the moment. And I think that's led to some disjointed displays, perhaps, so far this season for the youth. But I think Obita is someone who can stretch in the other direction. So it'll be really interesting to see what kind of impact he makes over the next few weeks. Portsmouth, of course, very incisive in transition against Crewe. They've got Ronan Curtis, of course, who is a real threat. John Marquise has been in very good form, and so they've obviously got Tom Naylor, who's a ball winner, who I'm quite fond of at this level as well. So I think it's going to be a clash of styles. Of course, Oxford are a side that always like to play out from the back. Carl Robinson's side definitely do that, and Kenny Jackett's very pragmatic manager. He's going to look, hopefully, for Portsmouth to press Oxford and look to steal the ball high up and attack quickly. So certainly a clash of styles.
Gary, I'll ask you about Peterborough versus Plymouth then. How do you see that one going? It's obviously a long old journey for Plymouth on a Tuesday night. They make a few long away journeys, don't they? But you would imagine a few goals certainly from the Peterborough end.
Well, you'd certainly think that at first glance, Peterborough have done very well. I think they've got goals all over the team. They haven't been too badly affected by the loss of Ivan Toney. I also see them as being a little bit inconsistent at times. I don't know whether that's the weight of pressure bearing down on them or not. They're a relatively expensively assembled side, you would imagine. They're almost certainly favourites for promotion, or amongst the favourites for promotion, which may weigh down on them as well. Now, on the flip side, you've got Plymouth, who, yes, they have the long journey, and they have a lot of long journeys at this level, which may affect them. I really like Ryan Lowe. I really like Ryan Lowe's style of football. I think when they came to us earlier in the season, we didn't get to see them at their best, which is lucky for us, because obviously they'd had some issues with players and COVID, and were a weakened side. I think there's a potential there for a little bit of a surprise. I think Plymouth are incredibly well organised. I think they will grow into this division increasingly. Remember, Ryan Lowe got Bury promoted, then stepped back down to get Plymouth promoted as well. So I think he's finding out a little bit more about this division, although he has managed in it before. I think he's learning about his players. I think that it could be a surprise result there against Peterborough.
Gab, arguably the biggest game in the division today, outside of Swindon versus the Imps, of course, is Ipswich versus Hull. How do you see that one playing out?
I would be in favour of Hull for that one. I think it's a really interesting case at Ipswich because normally when a team gets good results but the performances aren't necessarily backing it up, neutrals like myself have to convince fans that they're not as good as they think they are. And actually, it's kind of the other way round when it comes to Ipswich, because a lot of Ipswich fans are actually voicing concerns about the sustainability of their performances. Of course, they lost at Sincilbank earlier in the campaign. They've actually won 6 out of 6 on familiar soil, so you've got to give Paul Lambert some credit for that. But I just don't really see a clear playing identity with this Ipswich side. They had a couple of injuries in the recent game. They lost Teddy Bishop, which I think is a big loss. There's concerns about whether sort of Caden Jackson can lead the line at the moment. So lots of issues, I think, that are stopping them from becoming a cohesive unit. Hull won 3-1, I think it was, at MK Dons last time out, and Josh McGuinness bagged a brace in that one. And McGuinness is a player I've always liked at this level for his ability to play well when he doesn't score. I think he's one of those strikers who can run the channels, hold the ball up, do all the selfless work. But if he can add goals to his game, as he did at MK, then I think he could be one of the best strikers in the division. So I'd be in favour of Hull for that one. Gab,
as ever, really appreciate your insight. Just very quickly, where can Lincoln City fans follow you for your EFL and League One insight?
Yeah, just follow me on Twitter at Gab Sutton. Yes.
Great stuff. That's Gab Sutton, at Gab Sutton Football Lab on Twitter as well. Great to hear Gab thoughts. Gary, I'll leave the last word with you then. How do you see tonight's game going overall? And I'll just allude actually to a comment that we've had in from Philip Goodwin. It says, this looks like one of the most attacking lineups that we've fielded all season. We haven't scored a lot of goals from open play. Maybe Michael thinks this game offers a chance to put some more pressure on the opposition. It is quite an attacking lineup, isn't it? So we should be quite excited this evening.
Yeah, it's a creative lineup. I think in terms of attacking, it's 4-3-3. I think it's been very much the same as it has been all season. It's that kind of the George Grant in the middle, which I think a lot of people are excited to see. When he goes in the midfield, he usually goes into what I would class as the 6th role in front of the back 4, whereas he's going to be a little bit more advanced and central. So we're going to see if he's got the keys to unlock the defence. I think in terms of attacking pace, I think maybe we've certainly got pace out wide. I think we've got more direct players out wide at the moment today. But then when Harry Anderson plays, he's a direct runner. When Theo Archibald plays, he is as well. So I think that the key here really is getting balls into the box, Tom taking up the positions, and there could be goals here. I personally don't see it. I know lots of people have seen the comments as thinking a gut of goals. I think a single goal wins tonight's game either way.
Guy, the big question this evening is, have you got enough time to eat your lamb shank before kickoff at 7?
Fingers crossed. I could do with a Burton Road chippy, to be honest. Just go and pick it up. I'll have to have a word with them and see if they deliver out to Louth.
Brilliant advertising. They'll love that. Absolutely. Great stuff, Gary. Much appreciated. That's the thoughts of Gary Hutchinson's Stacey West blog, of course, and the Stacey West podcast. Well worth a listen, no doubt about that. Really appreciate your comments, your insight, and having you with us this evening. Of course, you can get your match pass by going to www.weareimps.com/ifollow. Hopefully the Imps can get another 3 points this evening. Do enjoy the game. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.